Okay, welcome to everybody. Welcome to Blockchain Chat. It is Wednesday, January 22nd, 2020. You know, if it's Wednesday, it's Blockchain Day here at Black Blockchain Consultants. We do four things within this group. Number one is focus on different types of blockchain jobs that are becoming available and how we can get blockchain jobs if that's what you want to do. Number two is discovering blockchain businesses that we can start. Number three is investing in the blockchain, not just crypto, but blockchain projects, whether you want to invest time or money in those projects. And then the final thing is using this $3.1 trillion industry in order to build generational wealth, because we have the ability to do that. So I'm joined tonight by my lovely ladies. So it's going to be a ladies' night. Talisha, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Talisha Shine. I am the Vice President of Blockchain Consortium International, also an Inner Circle member. And we are going to have a great conversation this evening. I'm going to promise not to geek out, I promise.
You may geek out a little bit because of the topics.
I'll keep it real.
Just a little.
You rein me in, and then because this is my jam right here. This is it.
And I'm going to take it from more of the social perspective. So this will be good. It'll be a good balance between the two of us.
Yes.
And then Tawana.
My name is Tawana Rivers. I'm the Chief People Officer at Blockchain Consortium International. And I, too, am really excited about tonight's conversation because I've got a little pessimism going on.
Fantastic.
She's our Miss Wonderful for this evening.
So, Talisha, I don't know if maybe you could speak up a little bit, or maybe it's just me, but you sound a little low to me.
Am I good now? How's that?
A little closer to the microphone, or maybe everyone else can let me know in the chat if you can hear
that was a
Talisha
little
just fine.
We're good? That's it. There you go. Is that better?
Yeah. Okay, so before we get started with tonight we have two different topics, and I think they're going to be fun for different reasons. Number one, we're going to talk about the Sacramento Kings and what they're doing, and I have a couple of other examples as well, and I have a point to those examples in terms of what they're doing with regards to crypto and tokenization. And then the second part of our session is going to be the serious side, which is about JPMorgan and what they're doing. And we want to talk about how it's going to affect our community. But before we do that, we have a couple of members that have come out with their books. So the first one is Miss Jackie Hayes. This is her Blockchain Basics Teen Edition. So yay, Miss Jackie. We're encouraging everybody, if you have a teen and they want to learn the basics of blockchain, this is a great resource for you. You can get this book, or you can come to blockchainstudies.tech and you can get the book as well as some additional information for your teen on there. We also have Eric Guthrie, who has a book called Blockchain or Die, and that's available on Amazon. So we want to promote our member books. And then Rob Morton has just come out with his book, No More, The Last to Know. And it's all about making sure that we are ahead of the curve with regards to blockchain technology. So if you want to read up with regards to what's happening with blockchain tech, those are three great resources written by our members within BBC. Another announcement that I have is, if you're an Inner Circle member, on January 27th, we are having an Inner Circle discussion about what's going to be happening over the next 18 months. So there was a recent report that talked about the fact that over the next 18 months, a lot of pioneers within blockchain, that these enterprises that started putting blockchain tech into their organizations, are going to have to upgrade their systems so that they do not become obsolete. So we're going to talk about what that means, and more importantly, how we can make money from this, from what's going to be happening in the next 18 months. So one of the things we talked about within the leadership of the organization is the public facing stuff is going to be, overall what's happening, but the inner circle stuff for 2020 and beyond is going to be how. How do you take advantage of it? What are the steps? Talisha, Tawana, myself, Eric, and Dr. Keisha are working on various things that you can do, simple steps, yet highly effective for you to take advantage of this. So if you're not a member of the Inner Circle, now's the time to join. It's $100 a year. Come to blackblockchainconsultants.com and join the Inner Circle because every month we're going to be diving into some critical part of blockchain and turning that into how you can profit from that. So before we go on any further, ladies, do you have any other announcements for the family before we dive in?
No, I think you covered it.
All righty then. Well, let's get started with, you all know I'm famous for my articles here. Actually, before I do that, let me come here. Yes, okay. So, I got a lot of stuff on my computer tonight, so I want to make sure I show you all the right stuff. Okay, so this is an article about crypto becoming closer to adoption as the NBA team launches the first blockchain-based app. It's about the Sacramento Kings. They launched a blockchain-based app that allows fans to bid on game-worn gear. The NBA is at the forefront of crypto adoption. So they've launched this app. The Kings must start winning big games to help raise awareness of the potential of blockchain tech. Many people think that crypto only serves as an alternative payment option. While there are coins that fit this bill, there are other cryptocurrencies that can perform a host of other functions. This author is saying he lauds the efforts of one NBA team to help raise awareness of the potential of blockchain tech. Sacramento Kings, in partnership with Consensus and Trium, launched a blockchain powered platform that enables fans to purchase authentic in-game wear. Kings fans can now bid on game-worn sports gear. During the games, King fans can participate in a live auction of game-worn gear through the award-winning Golden One Center app. On Tuesday, the game-worn jersey of Kings guard Buddy Hield was auctioned off, and this is from a few weeks ago. By using a blockchain-powered platform, all auction items will be authenticated. According to a Reddit user, a digital token will be minted once an item is sold. The buyer will receive the token in an Ethereum wallet. The token will serve as proof of the item's authenticity. Another advantage of using blockchain tech is that buyers can establish a trail of the item's purchase history. Should the auction winner decide to sell the game-worn gear, the person can show the token to prove ownership and transfer it to the buyer. The process is designed to protect fans from counterfeit memorabilia. The NBA is spearheading crypto adoption in professional sports. The NBA is considered an early adopter of crypto. In 2014, the Sacramento Kings became the first NBA franchise to accept Bitcoin as payment for store products and season tickets. How much money did they make from that when they sold in 2018? Sold their Bitcoin. I'm sure they made a lot of money. They may be holding it, so who knows? 4 years later, the same team began mining Ethereum. Recently, NetGuard Spencer Dinwiddie tokenized his contract to get a lump sum payment and reward token holders. Now the Kings are once again ahead of the curve in combating fake NBA merchandise. As an NBA fan, the author can see how a blockchain-powered platform can facilitate adoption. NBA fans are arguably the most passionate in the world. I say maybe next to soccer, but okay. The NBA has no shortage of iconic memories. This is a match made in heaven for authentic game-worn memorabilia. Okay, so we're going to stop stop it here. Thoughts with regards to the article itself. I definitely have a specific thought that I want to run across you ladies, but I'll open it up to the floor before we do that.
Ms. Joanna, you want to take on?
Sure. So, I loved this article because any progress is good, right? Any progress that any group or population of people that gets us closer to mass adoption is a positive. The article annoyed me though, because it gave all this credit to the NBA, and the NBA is not making all of the steps forward. Sacramento Kings are, right? Because we just had the situation with that same player, Dinwiddie, where the NBA wouldn't let him tokenize his contract.
Right.
He went ahead and did it anyway, but the NBA didn't support it. So the article writer, I felt like the angle was giving credit in the wrong direction. Sacramento Kings is who we need to be giving credit to because they're being brave and fearless and moving into this industry. But the NBA still has some ways to go.
Talisha?
I'm going to take on, yes, it is a little NBA centric, which is, it's cool, whatever. I just agree that those are the most avid fans. We have a lot of great rugby fans, and definitely we all know that the NFL is fantastic. So we're just going to let that go. But as it stands, I think this is where there's two little parts, again, because I'm a stickler for the semantics. This is truly a tokenization.
It is a tokenization.
We're not talking about cryptocurrency here, even though they did allow the acceptance of Bitcoin to purchase tickets. And that is definitely since 2014, they've been doing that, and that's going to be ongoing. But I do think this is where we have to specify that this is a tokenization. So we're not just building money from this. You're not going to exchange it out and do whatever. It's in an environment and an ecosystem where you can trade and leverage it for authenticity and for viability. So that I just need that point in there that kind of left it out. And I think this is where we aligned adoption with things that are popular. So again, sports is a very popular thing. And I always say, and you're going to laugh because I'm going to say it, but the internet blew up when porn came to it. That when you align something to it, it becomes really popular. So if you take those two things, those things that are very, very popular, and actually have something that powers them, that's where you see a lot of mass adoption happen. And so taking a sport, especially a very popular sport such as the NBA, and doing that, again, just small steps towards that adoption, we're seeing it happen. And like I said, esports is coming as well. But I think the take on it is definitely where you saw the most movement and where you're seeing people taking those risks in those type of areas. And again, from a tokenization standpoint rather than a monetary aspect of the crypto.
Right. So let's talk about this from the Black community's perspective, because I wanted to bring a couple of things in. The first is I was going to piggyback off. I actually thought about what Talisha said, but from a different point of view versus the porn. You are right that the use case, this is the first thing I thought when I read this, the use case that will create mass adoption of tokenization would be something like this. It is something that everybody can understand. Dinwiddie wants all of his cash up front for his contract. He puts it out on this app thingy with these token thingies. And, of course I'm using technical jargon here, put that quotes, and then all of a sudden people say, oh, I get it, because all of a sudden it's something that's tangible. Or I want to authenticate this specific jersey. I can go to this app, and I'm sure it's very user-friendly, so the UX is there. And if you don't know what UX is, then we did last year an interview with Bettina Justinian about UX stands for user experience. So that's going to be one of the other critical things within blockchain that creates mass adoption. But people will be able to go someplace and authenticate the jersey, the ball, et cetera, et cetera. And once you have that, this is part two of my thought here, is it will start to spill over into other sports. First of all. So you're starting off with one team, which is the Sacramento Kings. Then you get the Knicks involved and the Golden State Warriors. And then you're going to have other use cases within basketball. So you have the sports memorabilia, but then maybe it's somebody selling their season tickets and tokenizing them, or the winning basketball, the what do you call it? The winning shot, not the shot, but the basketball itself. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yes, we do.
Then it starts spilling over into other sports. So like Talisha said, you've got football, you've got rugby. I think soccer internationally is going to be the thing that really puts it out there globally. Just because, the United States, we're kind of insulated with football, but soccer is really the world's sport. It may spill over into the Olympics. Then it's going to start spilling over into other industries. So one of the industries I'm thinking of is the contract with Dinwiddie in terms of sports. All of a sudden, you're going to get a musical star. I'll say Mariah Carey, let's say, I don't know, but it probably have to be somebody who is, well known. They're switching labels, and they all of a sudden want their money up front. And then we start to think about what other times the people have to wait for their money because their contract is a 2, 3, 5-year contract, and they want all their money up front. Here's my point. I have a point with that, and then I'm going to come and bring something else into it. My point is, if you're thinking about how you can monetize these things, thinking about it the way that I just presented it to you, and ask yourself, what do you know about where these types of things, these types of use case applications are going to be considered in the next 2 to 3 years, and become a specialist in that. The second thing that I would say is, last week we had a great interview with Nadja Roberts, who of course has, amongst many things, the Crypto for Kids lessons. I think an excellent way to teach your kids about blockchain is to bring this specific example to them so that they're able to understand that Talisha's right, the terminology that the author used was not correct. But the examples that he gave, and saying, okay, having your kids or having kids at all just see it working or it being presented with the Sacramento Kings, and then figuring out, okay, this is how tokenization is going to work. This is how, if they're going to have their own crypto tokens, maybe, potentially they could have their own Sacramento Kings cryptocurrency. I don't know why, but it is possible. I think this is a great use case for us to teach kids 21 and under, about the blockchain in a real user-friendly way. So I know I said a lot there, but I had all of those things in my notes. I'm going to toss it again to both of you. And if you have something to comment in the chat as well, anybody who's listening, we'd love to hear that as well.
The one point that I would add is this also, there's a marriage between sports and gambling. So again, this becomes a real easy mechanism for authentication and tracking ability and immutability aspects to it. So again, you have a Final Four. We'll stick with NBA. You want to make sure your bracket is on point. You want to make sure nobody changed it, nobody does it. It may be even score driven now, that you can track it to that myopic level where you can say, I need the point spread to be this at this time in this quarter. And it can give you all that because they're keeping all this stats. And again, that metadata that's being used can't be leveraged in a normal everyday. And Vegas is a lovely place where metadata is running wild and rampant. this is a great way to actually accumulate it and make it work for you. And this is, again, where we can see those two things coming together very nicely. And even, like I said, kind of resulting in a tokenization aspect. You get to do whatever you want. Maybe you cash out, maybe you buy something, maybe you get season tickets. It has a nice way to go. But those two things, I think, the sports and gambling and definitely having credibility in the data will give us an amazing industry coming soon. So,
yeah. Tawana?
That's a very good point. I think for me, the culmination of this story is meet people where they are, right? Mm-hmm. And like you said, this is a hot industry. Mm-hmm. And it's an industry with a vast amount of diversity, right? So age differences, race, ethnicities, it's a really great play-in, and so hopefully the NBA gets on board and supports the initiative. And it
I'm sure they will.
Trends to more teams. So next year, this time, hopefully it's 10 teams that are doing something like this, not just the one.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they will. I'm sure that I think everyone's waiting for the first successful use case in their industry. So, and then once that use case is tested with the Kings, then, you'll have 3 teams, 5 teams, 10 teams, all teams jump on. Same thing with music, same thing with art and other types of industries. Everybody's waiting for that real first use case that's super successful. And then the walls come tumbling down, The only place where I can say I've seen a lot of companies jump in is financial services. And that's because they have so much money and none of them want to be left behind. So all of them are putting in a certain amount of money in order to do development, which when we get to that JPMorgan article, you'll see that as well. And some interesting things that happened with the JPMorgan. But I did want to also piggyback off of the gambling. I didn't think about this until you started talking about it, Talisha, but the digital identities with gambling as well. So, underage, making sure you're not dealing with someone who's underage. And you could even tie what do you call it? Not Gamblers Anonymous, but, people who have problems.
Right.
You could have certain things that trigger, hey, this person seems to have a problem because they are logged in and they've lost X amount of dollars or, things like that. So again, there are a lot of different options and opportunities with regards to, just this one Sacramento Kings example that we see.
Mm-hmm. Well, before you go on to the next thing, you just made me think of something. When I think of Dawn Dixon's Popcom and how her machines, you can walk by them in the digital identity. Think about all the people in Vegas who have committed crimes, right? They've gamed the system or learned how to game the system in their band. But, to be able to have them come in, maybe in their disguise, but the machine still picks them up and says, that's Roger. He's a bad seed. Like, thinking about all the ways this can be incorporated is so exciting. Yeah. And it's like this conversation, one person's thought leads to another one. Yeah. And that's what the industry will do. That's what mass adoption is, right?
Yes. Now, I just had, if anybody wants a multi-billion-dollar idea, I know this is so wrong. Is your man cheating on you? Is your woman cheating on you? Using that popcorn thing,
LoJack you from your digital identity. We're not going to LoJack people. This is not what we're trying to do. See,
but you would make a lot of money, Talisha. You'd make a lot. And somebody is going to profit from it. I want it to be somebody here in our
right? Why are you going to LoJack a person's identity to ensure you said you were somewhere and you're not there? Like, that's just awful. Awful. See, we're not going to do that.
But no, you're not going to do it. Somebody else at the BBC will.
Yeah, someone's going to do it.
All righty
I
then.
work in a casino, and I think that's another aspect. There's a lot of, again, data collected when you're in a casino. Most people don't recognize that, but they take everything from the time that you're there, the weather, that, you know, when you go into the casino, what it was like, and how many degrees it was, how long you stayed, what you eat, all of those things, again, could be monetized in a certain aspect or tokenized by the time that you send there. So again, if you're there in these environments, and I think that's just a separate kind of thing, where if your digital identity, if you're in the grocery store and, you know, you're in the grocery store every day at 5 o'clock, maybe you get coupons because we're trying to get this item to you. It's not just the music, it's now that you're here at a certain time doing a certain activity. These are the kind of things that proliferate just from having this kind of technology available to you.
Yeah. So Tamika's saying it's already being done if you have your location on, and there are several other apps that can track your location. I do know about that, but I was mentioning the Popcom thing because it could see who you're with. And, you know, unless you have the girlfriend's or the boyfriend's phone number as well, and you're tracking both of them at the same time. Anyway, that's just me being messy. So, you know, this is not Jerry Springer here. This is Black Blockchain Consultants. But if anybody's looking for a multi-billion-dollar idea,
Jerry Springer is a very rich man. So
he
there's
is.
a market for this.
Well, yes, there's a market for everything. So we can finally use our addiction of world star hip hop for something good.
Okay.
Anyway. Okay, the conversation has officially devolved here. So I wanted to show another example because I think mass adoption is going to take different forms. So we just showed the basketball example, but this is a building, $134 million building in Zurich has been sold using the blockchain. So let's see, I'm sorry, I read this earlier today, so I have to go back here and see. I think I'm going to start here. Okay, last week, as Swiss outlet SWI reported, Zurich real estate investment firm Brickmark bought a majority stake of, don't ask me to say that word, a property on one of the world's exclusive and most prestigious luxury shopping boulevards. To complete the deal with real estate investment group RFR Holding, known for purchasing the Chrysler Building in 2019, Brickmark partially completed the sale by creating and issuing proprietary Brickmark tokens based on the Ethereum blockchain. So with these tokens representing a reported 20% of the roughly $134 million transaction, Brickmark's acquisition of the property now registers as the largest blockchain token-based real estate transaction in history. They're breaking new ground for the real estate industry, they said. Use of a blockchain-backed token is just a gimmick. It's not just a gimmick. It's a dynamic method for securely funding a real estate transaction that woos investors with the prospect of both immediate and more sustainable value. As opposed to a pure cash deal, Brickmark token holders have the opportunity to collect recurring payments of rental income from the 1,600 square meter property, and the Brickmark tokens potentially become another saleable portfolio asset for RFR. While the use of a digital currency might seem baffling, RFR's willingness to accept tens of millions of dollars worth of payment in Brickmark's tokens suggests there's serious merit to these sorts of deals going forward. So I think I can stop there. Yeah. But again, we talked about the sports analogy and some of the intangible assets. And one of the things that I wanted to do was talk about mass adoption through a tangible asset like a piece of property, like real estate. So that deal, I don't think, got a lot of necessarily press. However, imagine one day if Rockefeller Center is sold through tokenization, what would happen? All of a sudden, you'd see it on ABC, CBS, NBC, and all of our phones will be blowing up saying, what is this blockchain thing and what's happening? You know, so I guess my point is, again, making it relatable. The more and more relatable blockchain becomes with these types of examples, the more mass adoption will happen. And the only way it can become relatable is if the user experience is there and if it's something that's easy to explain. So it could be a huge iconic building. It could be your favorite celebrity selling his or her house. It could be the Jackson family home in Gary, Indiana, you know, being tokenized and sold. And then the other thing is, I think businesses, this was a great example because they're going to have multiple streams of income with this as well. So because it is a property that's being rented out, and a lot of us are focused on wealth building, we have, again, a great way of explaining it to our family, our friends, our kids, that, you know, the people that hold the tokens are going to get a check every month, and they're going to get an appreciation on that token and be able to sell it at any time versus a normal illiquid asset. So again, wanted to just throw this out to the panel. What do you think? What are some of the things we should be looking for as Black blockchain consultants?
Say the same thing I always say. There has to be business involved before anything. The tech in itself has no bearing because, again, you're not explaining the tech, you're explaining the business use case. And this is a prime use case in the sense that we all know how a building is, you know, purchased and the residuals that happen. So either the land appreciates the building itself or you get rent from it. All of those things came together in this particular asset. So you're seeing, again, the use of crypto, which I hate when they do that, but it's tokenization again that we're talking about. But they've tied it very nicely together. So how they're doing it and how they're parsing it is also, if we go down further into the article, it did tell you that how they were going to make it a saleable asset. So at a certain point, you can get more money out of it. And again, you have to be a holder in order to have it. But at the same time, how to make it liquid becomes much more flexible than trying to sell your piece of it, because most of the time you wouldn't be able to sell a piece of anything. You have to own it outright. So that becomes a really strong process. And for people who are used to real estate or looking into wealth building, I think this is a straight line to it in the sense that you have the ability to really leverage something that you would have never had. This is something brand new in this arena.
Yeah, Tawana?
Yeah, you know, this article was really cool because it shows the growth of what's happening. Yeah, I think it was maybe 6 months ago we learned about the luxury apartments in Manhattan. I think that deal may have only been a little more than 30 million.
Correct.
And to now 130 million is like, whoa, like they're up in the ante with this. And so, Cherie, you know, you always say, pick your major, right? To people who are real estate agents, they already have their major. They just need to learn something new, right? To learn about tokenization, because this is already taking off. I'm not going to say it's going to take off because it's already happening. Yeah. And this is a prime example of that. So I know we've got some real estate agents in the inner circle. I know we've got some viewing this video. You know, learn about tokenization because it's going to be the next best thing in your industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if you're somebody who's just trying to raise capital all the time for your real estate deals, or, you know, you have been involved in holding and wholesaling, and now you want to do buy and hold, you know, this is also a great way. The other thing is it's a great way, I believe, once this is cracked as well, it's a great way for strangers who don't trust each other to do a deal together. Because if you think about it now, what's the big reason why, let's take the Black community, we don't do deals with each other? You know, a lot of people say it's because we don't trust each other. I don't think it's that simple, but let's just take the trust issue. Well, now you do tokenization, and let's say you have a smart contract attached to it. where, certain things can't happen outside of the contract, then all of a sudden you can have more people who may have money, but they don't know each other, all of a sudden do business together because the trust doesn't need to be there. And, right now you've got, let's say, this $134 million $134 million building. The entity, the bank itself, is like the third party trust factor. One of the things we know with blockchain is you don't have to have that third party. Once the technology has really been proven out, you don't need to have that third party. And when you don't need to have that third party, all of a sudden you don't have to pay that third party the management fee of 5, 10, 20% per year. So all of a sudden you, as the investors, you get more of the money. So again, being able to take something like this as an example and relay it to, people in the community is going to be one of the big ways that mass adoption has. But I still hold to, there'll be some use case that happens that'll really, really be talked about. Just like when Bitcoin was rising to $20,000 a piece, all of a sudden people started talking about it every day. There'll be something. It'll be either a historic monument or historic piece of property, or something that's done, some sort of use case that's done that all of a sudden brings us to the forefront. But that is not the time for us to be laying roots with this. Really, it's now, whatever you want to choose. So anybody else before we go to financial services with JPMorgan? Oh, okay. So Tawana's ready.
She's ready.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh, I got one more thing. Just because I came across this and it only take a minute to go through. There's a new act of Congress that could drive up crypto adoption as well. So you can see a running theme here that I have about crypto adoption. And this is just from, I think, a few days ago that this was released. Taxation of crypto assets may well be hindering their adoption in the United States. So what they say within this article is that there is the Virtual Currency Tax Fairness Act of 2020 that aims to address this. The legislation has been introduced to the U.S. Congress today by representatives of both parties. The measure seeks to make low-value crypto transactions much simpler. And somewhere within the article, they talk about if it's less than $200. Here we go. The new act would allow for crypto transactions to be tax exempt for smaller value purchases. Because right now we know that if you buy any crypto, it goes up, goes down, you sell it, even if it's for a penny, it's taxed. What they're trying to do is to assist with mass adoption by getting rid of the taxes on anything. Individuals would not need to report transactions creating a gain or loss of less than $200. I think that needs to be $2,000, but hey, but this is something. So now all of a sudden we're starting to see legislation catch up to technology, in my opinion, a lot faster than we would normally think. Somebody with some real power came to the legislators with this. I'll be interested to see if this passes and what the final number is going to be. But I thought this was a very interesting piece of information as well, and something we really want to pay attention to, especially anybody like Rebecca Samuels and anybody who's very much into taxes and crypto taxes. Ladies, your thoughts on this before we go to JPMorgan?
No, this is optimistic. I mean, this is great. I mean, to know that they're talking about it, and I agree that number needs to come up quite a bit. But the fact that the conversation is out there being had is a big deal. Because you think of the IRS, you don't normally think of them as flexible. So this is a big deal.
Yeah, I think it's somebody who's very powerful that brought this up, and kudos to them. Okay, so let's talk about JPMorgan. So last year, there was this article about JPMorgan. Of course, we know, well, you may not know, for those of you who are new, Jamie Dimon is the CEO of JPMorgan, and he was very skeptical about cryptocurrency and blockchain, and then all of a sudden he flipped on a dime and started to say how much he loved it. I personally think he was BSing in the very beginning, but, you know, we'll keep that amongst family here.
Oh no, we're going to talk about that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, but yeah.
So that's what Tawana wants to talk about. So okay, perfect. So they were saying here that we were two of the first members. I'm sorry. I remember this article. There was a gentleman who was part of the JPMorgan blockchain team. So I guess he was saying here, we were two of the first members of the JPMorgan blockchain team. We built some of its earliest blockchain tech and vetted other blockchain providers for the bank's strategic investment adoption. In this article, we'll discuss the technology we developed during our time at the bank and our insights into the current suite of JPMorgan blockchain products, from Quorum to the JPM coin. So the author is saying that they worked on and learned from the challenges of adapting existing public blockchains for enterprise use, including what it takes to successfully lead financial institutions towards decentralized tech. We also discovered that the right place to drive blockchain forward was not from inside of a bank, as we couldn't make the decisions we needed to in order to truly drive innovation. So the authors left the JPMorgan team in 2016 to found Cadena, a hybrid blockchain platform company, and apply our knowledge to deliver on the promise of blockchain. So the first thing they're talking about is the JPMorgan coin, Juno. JPMorgan never set out to build a blockchain. The company's brand centers around finance and banking, not software and tech. At the same time, JPMorgan also knew the importance of adopting valuable financial tech and strategically investing in future innovation. We formed JPMorgan's new products division in 2015 to evaluate and advise the bank on potential technology vendors, from cloud to big data solutions. 6 months in, blockchain rapidly became our primary focus. Using our experience as programmers and technical experts, we evaluated everything on the market at the time, from Ethereum to digital asset to Ripple to Hyperledger. It was clear back then that the blockchain options on the market were technologically inadequate for real-world enterprise use cases. And again, this was 2015, 2016, so that makes sense. Following our assessment, we decided to build our own blockchain within JPMorgan. We wanted to show the bank that the technology could work if only someone could just get it right. Our program Juno began as a demo. We based it on a Byzantine fault tolerant, I guess is where Talicia's going to geek out. I mean, or BFT variant of the Raft consensus algorithm known as Tangaroa. Juno was designed to be a viable private blockchain with sufficient transactions per second and node support for serious enterprise use case, including a true BFT consensus for security. The demo turned into an early payments pilot that JPMorgan deployed to offices in London, Tokyo, and New York, speeding up transaction settlements similar to what JPM Coin does today. We open sourced and presented Juno to the Hyperledger Foundation in 2016. Juno remains an example of an early performant private blockchain. It showed us that blockchain could live up to its promise. Despite all the progress we were making, JPMorgan was not yet ready to put its full weight and brand behind blockchain back then. Its reluctance to announce Juno and the payments pilot at the time signaled to us that a large financial institution would not be the best place to develop blockchain. It was only after we left, and possibly because we left, that JPMorgan realized it needed to take its technology serious to keep its talent. That was one of the sentences that I really wanted to point out. JPMorgan then turned the Emerging Technology Group into the Blockchain Center of Excellence.
I want to stop you before you go any further.
Okay, yes, ma'am. I'm going to keep this up, though.
Yeah, you have to see the first two sentences are just like it right there. They understood that they couldn't do it internally.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't change something from the inside. It has to come from an external catalyst. That always has to be. It's never going to change because we do it the way we always do it is the common theme in every industry across. So you're never going to be able to do it. And they were tasked with doing it. So they were asked to build something for them, for themselves, and they still couldn't get the enough support behind them. So that in itself tells you a whole lot that was going on right there. The second aspect is building the demo. The demo itself, and this is a true tech piece, how they're building this consensus. It's a simplistic but very complicated algorithm to make sure you have all these layers. And again, they're pulling their best resources together. They have the smallest team possible to do this. So again, they're not butting up against, a whole IT department, all structured, all this, basic red tape. It's just themselves. And he points that out, that we are the first two on the team. We are the team. It's me and you. We're making it work. And they got a very sophisticated algorithm to make some of this work. And again, you can see it if you were a technical person, just bringing that in and showing like, this is how it's going to work, it would blow you away. It really would set you up to be like, okay, this is something significant, and take a look. The fact that they had to, again, extract it and leave the company in order for them to take it seriously says like it all. Like that, I just couldn't stop from like, that is it. There isn't anything else you want. They don't want the change, but they had to take the change seriously, because once you extract it and say, okay, if you're not going to use it, somebody is going to use this, and you're going to be left behind significantly. And again, we developed it from your point of view. So it's not even like proprietary or even trade secrets. This is just like, it's built kind of nicely for you, your systems. It has your feel to it. To be able to take that out and then go and give it to somebody else is probably very dramatic, to say the least. That probably put them on edge very quickly. And the whole Blockchain Center of Excellence came very quickly thereafter.
Yeah. So, Tawana, you have...
Yeah, so I want to circle back to Mr. Diamond. So I think I thought it was very telling that they created this new division in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2017 is when he made his statement that Bitcoin was a fraud. And so when we say, was it hype? Absolutely, it was hype, because you wouldn't have put resources, which means money, behind something that you thought was a fraud. And the basis of Bitcoin is blockchain. So it was very telling that even at the early stages, learning how to manipulate is still at the foundation of this industry.
Exactly.
And that was, for me, very powerful, because to know that they are working as hard as they are on blockchain solutions, it's the one area where I don't feel comforted, right, by the advancement, because it makes me nervous on how they're going to handle things, and if there's going to be integrity. Now, the good thing, blockchain is going to prevent some of the malicious acts from happening, but it still makes me nervous. And I think if it makes me nervous, and I'm a little well informed, to that person who's still learning what this all is, I think that's going to slow the process. Think about how scared everyone got and how the conversations were when we started talking about Facebook's Libra, right? And how we were like, wait a minute, and I think that's going to slow it a bit. Whereas conversation we just had about the NBA is going to speed it up. But I think when you get into the financial services, There's just a little reluctancy because there are trust issues, and understanding intent also, right? Because at the end of the day, we know that for them, it's about money. But, you know, I also love in this part of the article how as soon as, you know, the people who know what's going on, they take the product and they say, we're going to do this on our own. If you don't back it, fine, we'll take it and do something else. Now, all of a sudden, wait a minute, you know, the thought of someone else getting it, right?
But that's the trust issue. Again, you have to have change from an external source for it to be validated and viable. So again, if a bank creates it, you're like, it's okay. But some third party down the street, some guy that says, hey, I just put together this thing, would you like to try it? People are going to say yes. So it becomes that the opposite is happening, where these individuals will leave. The talent pool is very, very sparse. It's not, you know, very good for this. And so if you say no, they have a job waiting for them somewhere else with much more viability and acceptance. Yeah. So again, it's almost like this is the reverse of trying to pull all your resources. They want to leave. They're making much more strides and much more viability, and will have the adoption well before if they said, this is our internal resource, we're rolling it out, and we have to do this big PR campaign. Kadina's doing it and doing it very well right now without anybody's help. Like if you would have never said JPMorgan, they'd be like, oh yeah, we just threw this little thing together. So that's why it happens very much from an external catalytic positioning here. So we're not going to see the banks themselves are just going to prepare, and they're going to have to acquire outside sources in order to make this work for them.
Yeah, and Daniel makes a good point. He said the U.S. financial institution is afraid to move from centralization.
It's hard.
That's true.
They're going to be forced.
They're going to be forced to because this is really a global thing. Yeah. So they're kind of caught in a conundrum because they can't not do it, because then they would get so far left behind that they could catch up, but by acquiring, you know, but then they're afraid to do it because they, in my opinion, are afraid of the control, you know, and that's kind of where Facebook Libra is coming from as well. We don't want to give up control. So let's get ahead of this thing and figure out how we can still control it, you know?
And it's not just getting ahead of it, Cherie, it's let's bully everyone else, right? Let's use our power, because when you think about Facebook Libra, and the fact that now that they're working on this solution, no one else can post a blockchain ad on their platform, and, you know, anything blockchain is banned. And then when you think about Chase, they do the same thing. So many of you know I'm affiliated with the Blockchain Investor Group International. It's an investment club, and we have a Chase account. And they have made it very clear to us, you cannot buy cryptocurrency with this account. How do you have a whole blockchain division and I can't buy crypto? Like, it makes no sense, but it's the power and it's the bullying, because they want to be set aside at the top, and no one else can have anything. It's everything we're trying to fight against, right? As Black people, to get ahead, we're learning about all this, we're educating ourselves, we're trying to find where we fit in so we can gain generational wealth. But at every turn, there are brick walls. I can't even buy crypto from your bank, but you have a division.
Yeah,
you know,
buy your own thing.
Yeah, with my own money, and you're in your institution. It's just it's so sad, because it's every 3 steps we take forward, you feel like someone's knocking you back down. Not even a step. They're just knocking you back down. You got to fall and then get back up, dust yourself off, and take the 2 steps, and then try to get ahead again. And
but
it is
that's
so
the way it
frustrating.
works. Yeah, that's the way it works in every industry and everything.
The Facebook thing is a true testament, because again, Facebook had its policy very specific about cryptocurrency. It wasn't even about blockchain in general, because you could talk about the infrastructure because they are a true tech company, so they're going to talk about it. But the minute that you started talking about the cryptocurrency, well before they were even in the works, banning that, having that discussion. And then again, very much framing the conversation. And I don't think it's in the sense of bullying. I just think they want to be the only person there. I'm the only person talking to you. This is where the cult-like situation comes in. You're only going to know the information I share with you. You're only going to buy things that I tell you are good and viable for you, because I know better. I'm good at this. Don't worry your little green head about it. I got you, and you're underserved, and I will be the one that serves you.
You're the consumer, and actually they are really targeting. I didn't bring it up here, but they're really targeting the underbanked. Yeah. I saw as I was doing my continued research today. I put in something with Google, and there's this huge thing about the underbanked being targeted with these things. So I have a couple of things to say with regards to that piece of the article. The first thing is that as entrepreneurs, we're always looking for resources, or as technologists, we're always looking for resources. And one of the interesting things is that these gentlemen, I'm guessing gentlemen, technologists, were able to find those resources, at least in terms of a regular paycheck, through JPMorgan. So when Talisha talks about striking out on your own and having and change coming from outside of a company versus inside, there's always that balance of where we're going to get the resources from, especially because now VCs are, I haven't heard about this, throwing as much money into a lot of different projects. The last time I read about what VCs were doing these days, VCs stand for venture capitalists, if people don't know. The last thing that I heard that they were doing was putting more money into fewer projects. So now you've got this fight for how are we going to get this thing up and running. So that's part number one. Part number two is when they left, that's when they became valuable, right? Mm-hmm. When they left, all of a sudden, JPMorgan was probably blowing up their phone saying, hey, why'd you guys leave? I think that happened because I want to go back to a specific sentence that was in here. They said here, the demo turned into an early payments pilot that JPMorgan deployed in London, Tokyo, and New York. These are three of the largest financial epicenters. They didn't deploy it in Des Moines, hello, in Timbuktu, hello. They put it in London, Tokyo, and New York, which means to me that they knew that this was going to, when I say they, I mean JPMorgan, right? Knew that this was going to work. Then he says, speeding up transaction settlements similar to what JPM Coin does today. Mm-hmm. This author is saying they put it in the top financial centers and it worked. And if they were blowing up their phone afterwards, it must have worked enough for them, for JPMorgan to say, hold up, wait a second.
We made a mistake.
You guys want to come back? So they ended up opening up the Center for Blockchain Excellence or whatever it was. I would be very interested, my follow-up question to them would be, what was not in your employee contract? And this is where I want my Black people to be very careful when you go into your Fortune 500 company and you do a lot of blockchain stuff for them. I'm going to give you well, I don't have a specific story, but I know that there are certain companies out there, and I would imagine there are a lot of companies out there now that either have it in your employee contract or in the employee handbook, that if you create something within the company, it belongs to the company. That means if you decide to leave for any reason, you cannot bring it with you. And we've got our HR person, Tawana, here, right. So you can let me know if I'm wrong.
You are not wrong. Most, especially tech companies, but most big, large employers will have that to protect themselves. What's interesting here is, again, put my pessimism hat on. I'm inclined to believe that Kadena is not a standalone. I'm inclined to believe if they were allowed to leave with that much IP, that JPMorgan has some kind of still investment tie.
See, that's the key, and that kind of ties us into the next article.
Okay.
From a technical perspective, an algorithm is not your IP, because that's a protocol. That's like saying the TCP/IP. It's open source. I can use that. I know what that is. I can set it up any way I want. I can write it in any language I want to. That's not trademarked. That's not protected, because that's a function. That's the protocol that works. It's like an email protocol. We can't trademark email.
Right.
And they'll try.
Right. People have tried, but that's why they make it into a suite. They make it into a product. Standalone protocols do not make solutions. That's going to be my saying for the rest of this whole conversation. Standalone protocols and technologies will never be a solution. So I can mix and match. And when I start to mix and match, that becomes the solution. And that's what I can trademark. That's what I can use. So they left like, okay, that's fine. We don't have to take anything of that, because all I need to know is how it runs. That algorithm is mine. I can just take it. And now I'm going to wrap it up in some other layers. I have an application layer that I'm going to take onto it. I'm going to put it into this new infrastructure time. So this is where technology by itself doesn't cause the thing to come together. It's truly molding all of those things together to present a full solution. And that's what Kadena is. It's not the same thing. It wasn't meant to be the same thing. They just took an idea and said, okay, fine. That's how you want it to run. We're going to do the same thing. And on Microsoft, yep, you want to email. You want to say a to and a send? Okay, great. I'm going to take it over here. But I'm going to say to, from, with who. I'm going to make it all pretty and make it better. And more importantly, I'm going to use other technologies to go along with it, which Kadena does. Again, it's using all these different protocols and application layers to make a solution that they can't even comprehend what they've done. So if you were looking for how does this fit, you would never know. It's like, well, it's sort of, kind of. I'm like, well, everybody's sort of, kind of, isn't it? Because everybody uses the internet. It's sort of kind of like the internet. How are you going to prove that? What does that mean?
Yeah, so
interesting. Good point.
We've got Vernon here. We've got Daniel is saying exactly. Yes. Vernon's saying we've got to start thinking outside the box. If our only options are to keep bringing our talent to the big exploiters of the world, we sustain the system that keeps knocking us 2 steps backwards every time we collectively try to step forward. Absolutely. Here's my thing. If you're going to your employers, don't give them everything. Like, hold something back. This is where BBC can really help each other. The members of BBC can really help each other. Because Talisha just brought in some game that I didn't even, like, I don't know all of that. But I know where the pitfalls are. And then we can go to Talisha and say, okay, how do we navigate this? And then Tawana is our HR person. How do we navigate this so that if something goes down, we've got options. And also recognize, and this goes to the third mission of BBC, is to invest time and money so that we can do the fourth thing, which is build generational wealth. If you're going to start building stuff within these Fortune 500 organizations and these big companies, you do not own, most likely, equity in any of that. Correct. Another thing I will say is, because I don't see Ryan here tonight, but we've got a couple of college kids within our group. I know specifically at the majority white institutions, I'm not sure about the HBCUs, if you build anything on those college campuses using college resources, the school owns a piece of it. Now, these days it's a lot easier to not have to do that. You can just have your laptop, especially with blockchain. But I do know that's part of the game. That's part of the reason why Harvard and Yale and MIT, they're so wealthy, because they do put the resources into their students to build stuff, and they have an automatic kickback. So read your student handbooks as well if you're creating things using school resources.
Most definitely.
The final thing that I will say in regards to this is we talked about the Sacramento Kings and the mass adoption thing. It wouldn't surprise me if a company like JPMorgan that does financial services the way that it does, or some of the larger banks or investment banks that we know, doesn't put together that big real estate deal or tokenization deal, that's going to hit the news in the next 12 to 18 months. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So part of the reason why they're probably so invested in it is because they know that if they can build the platform to control it, and they can do the right publicity with the right, use case, then all of the money and the ingenuity and, oh, aren't they so great, can flow through these big companies. So, understand the game there as well. Tamika's saying, always talk to a lawyer prior to accepting an offer. All your thoughts and ideas can be protected. Yeah, definitely talk to an attorney. Even if you say, you know what, you can't be cheap with this. If their hourly rate is $200 an hour, pay the $200. That way, they're not trying to rush you off the phone after 10 minutes because you asked for free. No, just invest the money and let them ramble for an hour and have, get a free account at Skype or whatever and record them, everything that they say, so you could hear it over and over again, and just let them talk about what you need to do to protect yourself.
And there's an exception to every employment contract, right? The higher someone or their skill set is in demand, the loosey-goosey the rules get, right? I mean, that's just the truth. We
just
can have this elaborate contract, but if we need a skill set and you have it, that contract goes out of the window, and everybody before you that signed it, oh well, because you won't have to, right? And I see that happen every single day. And I would just say my final thoughts are going to be, when we work for these other people, these other organizations, it's going to be our responsibility to start being a little selfish, right? We need to learn, and then we need to break away and build our own. Because what I know to be true is generational wealth is very rarely, I'm not going to say never, but very rarely going to be obtained by getting a paycheck from an employer.
That's true.
Very, very rarely, right? It's going to take equity, something else, even not even a revenue share. It's going to take something big to get generational wealth. Yeah. And if we keep being excellent at these organizations, we're just making them better, and that's it. Yeah. I shared, just recently with some members of the group that we just had layoffs at my job. And it's because the industry's changing and everybody's tightening up the purse strings. And those were IT specialists. And those IT specialists now have to find other gigs. And all of the things that they worked hard on and all of those ideas, company still has them, right? We'll still build things with them. We'll still, be efficient in some areas because of all of those great ideas. And so I think we have to start being selfish. Now, I know that's not the employee, politically correct thing to say, but if we're trying to advance as a race, we got to do things differently. It's a new decade and we can't keep thinking like we've been. And, selfishly is that's the only word I can think of, is to really just rethink what we want and what we're willing to give. And you will have to hold some things back. I'm not saying sabotage a project, but you may have to hold some things back for yourself. Be like these JPMorgan Chase guys, the Cardina guys, and hold some stuff for yourself and break off and build your own and come back to us and we'll help you get some funding, right? And and let's do this. Build Black businesses.
Yeah.
Period. And point blank.
Yeah.
I would say the tag on to that is, like, again, you are an at-will employee. I think that's the language that is used in most
That's the language.
contractual aspects. You're at will. And so again, you're doing exactly what you're doing. You're fulfilling the obligations of your job requirements and duties. But at the same time, I always think you need to be very introspective of what the problems are that aren't being solved in your own organization, because those are the ripest things. You know what's wrong, you know what's causing them, that you can take that away. And I think this is where I think, again, a singular focus is not always the best thing. Like, you are an entity unto yourself. So you are the CEO of your own business, of your own knowledge, of your own experience. So you'll have to leverage that in other places. I know many people who have gotten jobs and do really well, but they're just like, I think I could solve this problem better. The company didn't want it to be solved in that way. And they left and ended up now being the consultant to the business, because I've done that myself. So it becomes a way of thinking about things where, yes, you're never trying to burn a bridge, but you're also really, I think this is where the at will comes in, looking at it from, this is what I'm willing to do. And that's your job description. That's what you're willing to do. What I'm not willing to do is give you my ideas, my creativity on this hand, because I'm using it in a different capacity. And your job is your first investor. It is a thing that's going to keep the lights on and do the things you need to do while you're working and building your own wealth.
Exactly. And if you have been in an industry for a decade, 2 decades, and you see a blockchain solution, it may not even be you doing it within the company. It may be you taking your ideas, setting up your own company, getting your own team together to solve that problem, and then asking your company, your Fortune 500 company, to be your test case for that, but you own it, or, going to another company, not necessarily their direct competitor, but another company that needs that assistance as well. So we didn't get a chance to get through all of this stuff with JPMorgan, but that's okay. I think what we talked about tonight in regards to protecting yourself as an employee or a student, this is real game. And that's what we're here to do within BBC, is talk about it from our point of view and really, come up with some strategies so that all of us can be helped and assisted as well. So with that, we've got January 27th coming up. If you're an Inner Circle member, I will be sending you the notice and the Zoom for that. If you're not an Inner Circle member, we are having a discussion on what's happening in the next 18 months. A lot of old blockchain protocols are going to be updated because they're going to be obsolete. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for us as Black blockchain consultants. And if you want your piece of the pie, then that discussion that evening will be how you can actually set yourself up for that payday, because there'll be a payday that's happening in 18 months and another one that's happening in 3 years. So we're going to talk about both of those on the 27th. So if you are not a member of the Inner Circle, it's $100 a year. blackblockchainconsultants.com, go to the membership tab and become a member. So with that, I want to say God bless you. Have a great evening, and we'll see you in Flock, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.